So yeah, people want to say that if you're just getting on YouTube, you're not gonna be able to get views because only the people that are originally set as a YouTube user since it originated, as in the year 2007, 2008, it started getting big. After that, only those users will be able to actually acquire a successful channel without representation, basically. So there's not really been anything negative said because all communication, whether it's verbal or physical communication within yourself, has pushed a simulation forward. So that's the way I see it right now. I don't want to dive off into another brother's ego, really, so I'll try to keep the phone still or just be where I'm at. But I got about 40 minutes until I can get a ride. But yeah, you can't perfect the madness. So really the only way to sustain the house of consciousness, because the house of consciousness is basically, look at it as the mansion in heaven, or like your father's mansion in heaven. That's what religious folk like to say. So it's just a good analogy to say that we all meet at the house of consciousness at the end of the day, or whatever you say, that basically invokes a turning point. So we're all dealing with addictions, but then it's not really addiction, it's just like mental madness, and you can't really house you can't house anything without it being the entirety of everything else. So we're stuck in this paradigm, this matrix, and there's so many different lyrics by this other brother, but like, you know, it'd take a long time for you, the listener, to get where I'm at with this specific YouTuber. So it's not really like a matter of discussion. Like, you can't really have like a girlfriend, or you can't really be in a relationship and just like talk to yourself. Like, you can't just like look at trees and stuff like that and just be able to house like what you're actually gonna wanna house, because that's just dealing with like perfecting the madness. So there's so much that goes into this mental cleanse, as in the debate, if you will, that it just doesn't even, you can't even get around it, and there's no way, there's no boundaries to get around, or there's no obstacles to get around, and there's just boundaries everywhere. So the only obstacle, like, you could say what do you say, late great John F. Kennedy said, fear nothing but fear itself. Like, have no obstacles but obstacles themselves, because we're all going to the same place in this dimension, which is just a house of consciousness, or the place where consciousness is housed. And that's not to look at it as in we're all living in hell, because religious ramifications or religious references do invoke a different simulation. So the stipulation being like what type of simulation you're dealing with, it's just like there's not really anything to get around, and there's nothing to really see, so there really is no obstacle, and you're just trying to perfect the madness again. So high frequency is the real deal. Like, if you're not trying to be high frequency, or I'll say if you're not already high frequency, you don't even know what high frequency is, because you actually have to walk the walk to understand what high frequency is. You can't just walk the talk, you know, you got to actually walk the walk. You don't have to have been through trials of bad adventures or trips gone wrong. You just have to understand something from a higher perspective. But you also have to know that you're always going to just be trying to perfect the madness. At this rate, at any rate. So, people want to say, like, we're getting in each other's faces and stuff. Like, nobody wants to be an icon out there. They just want to be idle, like, not doing anything. Because that's the way everything basically works. The sun produces everything, the moon does nothing, but the moon does the exact same 13 cycles every single year. So that is why